Okay, we're going to call this hearing to order. The format is going to be Russ is going to get up and from Leatherstocking and tell you exactly what this resolution is about. We're going to have a short question and answer period, which you can ask Russ questions. It's going to be limited to one question per person. When that ends, we're going to let whoever wants to speak in here speak for 3 minutes or less, and that'll be the hearing. You want to start it, Russ?
Sure, thank you. My name is Russ Miller. If you can't hear me, stick your hand up and I'll yell a little louder. I'm the Vice President of Gas Supply for Corning Natural Gas, and I'm also an officer for Leatherstocking Gas, which is a joint venture between Moravito Holding Groups and Corning Natural Gas. Before I get started, I'd like Joe Moravito to get up and kind of explain to you how this process all started. Hopefully it'll give you a little insight, and then I'll talk about the technical aspects of the project.
Okay, thanks, Russ. What I'm going to attempt to do is just give you a little background on how this project came together and what we think some of the benefits are. With us tonight is Mike German. He's the CEO of Corning Natural Gas. You met Russ Miller, Justin Fisher with Moravito Holdings, and Bill Moravito is the director of Leatherstocking Gas Corp. You'll probably hear a lot of things about what everybody thinks Leatherstocking is, okay? So what I'm going to try to do is explain to you what Leatherstocking really is. Leatherstocking is a joint venture between Corning Natural Gas and Moravito Holdings, Inc. It's a 50-50 joint venture so that there's local ownership on one side of the equation. Leatherstocking is my business model is to provide local gas to local residents and consumers and businesses, okay? So we have no interest in transporting the gas out of the area. This local gas is for consumption by local people. That's the model, pure and simple, okay? The project was initiated as we were approached by some local businesses in discussions because of their energy costs, okay? They were having problems in the marketplace because of some of their energy costs. So we approached Mike German of Corning Gas and saw if we could get him interested in a local low-pressure pipeline. And Mike was willing to partner with us to take this project on. Okay, so that's how this thing all started, and that's really what the premise of Leatherstocking is. And now Russ will be able to tell you the specifics about it.
Thanks, Joe. So what we're here for tonight is to get permission to get a municipal franchise. So the way the process typically works is we have to get the okay from the municipality to go into public rights of way, typically roads, to be able to put our facilities in. Our pipe, our 6-inch high-density, low-pressure pipe that's going to operate at below 124 pounds. Doesn't look too intimidating to me. This is the size of the pipe that would probably go into a place like Amphenol. This is the size of the pipe that would go into a residence. In New York State right now, there's about 47,000 miles of distribution pipe. So this is nothing new. It's not a new technology. The plastic has been around for what, Mike, at least 40 years? So everything we put in the ground now in Corning, unless we do a high pressure replacement, is plastic. It's high density plastic. It doesn't corrode. So I'll talk more about that later if I need to. But what we're really asking for from the town is the ability to go in their public rights of way, initially so we can get to places like Amphenol and Midwest-Vaco that would be large energy users, large natural gas users. And then as the system is built out, we would start extending our services through lines like this to residential and commercial customers. And the amount of gas they use dictates the size of the pipe that they're going to use, but probably 90% of the pipe in the ground is going to be about this big around when we start connecting residential customers. So I talk about the municipal franchise process. We would have to get permission from the board to go into public rights of way. We still can't do anything. Then what we have to do is we have to identify a source, where the gas is going to come from. We have to identify an end user, where the gas is going to go to. We have to do the design and construction, all on paper, identify the economics, how much it's going to cost to those anchor customers, those Mead, West Vacos, and Amphenolls of the world. And then once that's all identified, we go up to the Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission will look at your project and say, it provides a public benefit. It's something that is good for the economy, it's something that's good for the residents. Then they can tell us, then they'll tell us we can build it. They will give us a franchise, certificate of public convenience for the municipal franchise that we wanted to build piping. Then they specify and they inspect every single thing we do, every piece of pipe that we put in the ground. They identify how the pipe goes in. They approve our construction practices. They ensure that we do the surveys. We have to walk 1/3 of the system every year to check for leaks. We have to be able to respond to 75% of all leak calls within 30 minutes and 100% of all leak calls within 1 hour if there's a leak on the system. So everything we do is regulated, down to the amount of money we can charge a customer, and also the amount of money we can charge a customer if we want to put a service line in their house. And if they're within 100 feet of where our gas main is, we can't charge them anything. So this is very, what is the word I'm looking for? This is a very simple process. It's a very long process, and it has a tremendous amount of checks and balances in it. And the Public Service Commission is there as an advocate for the customer. So I don't know that the Public Service Commission regulates propane or oil companies, do they, Joe? So if you have a problem with your propane or oil dealer, you really don't have much recourse to go after them. Well, the utility company, you can call up the Public Service Commission and you can say, I got a problem, I'm calling this guy up, he won't give me answers. They send out a complaint. I have to answer that complaint within 24 hours, and if I don't, I get fined. I get fined real dollars. So there are a lot of checks and balances in place. So let me finish my little dissertation on the process. Once we start to build to pipe, we come back to the municipality, and we have to do everything in accordance with their code with regards to how we repair the roads, how we repair sidewalks and streets. They'll bond us or require us to be bonded. And we put the pipe in. And we put the pipe in where they say we can put the pipe in. So they'll say, yeah, there's a water line there, I don't want you there, I want you over here. If there's an issue with the way we repair something or done something, we're answerable not only to you as a customer, we're answerable to them as a municipal government. So I hear a lot of different rumors. I'm not going to enumerate all of them, but this is a very, very familiar process for most of the people in New York State. Now, this map I have represents all the different franchise areas within New York State. And all these colored blocks, probably about 70% of the state of New York, have active distribution systems within them. So what we're proposing is nothing new, nothing mysterious, nothing dangerous.
Okay, we're going to have a question period now, one question per person, and the questions are going to be limited to laying pipe. I don't need anything about gay marriage, abortion, or fracking. The resolution is for laying pipe.
Thank you. How does this pipe, this plastic pipe compare to the pipeline in the Millennium Pipeline that was cited for August 7th that said the wells may be defective throughout pipelines, Millennium Pipeline. So how do these pipes, plastic pipes, compare to the pipes discussed there?
It's a very good question. I can answer this
The
myself.
Millennium Pipe is a 30-inch high-pressure interstate pipeline running over 1,000 pounds per square inch. These are plastic pipes run at 124 pounds or less. That's a 6-inch piece of pipe. I really don't want to comment on the Millennium, but there was a faulty welds on the Millennium Pipe. It should never have gotten there, and it did leak about 1.3 million cubic feet a day, 1.3 million cubic feet over an extended period. The pipe moves 500 million cubic feet a day. Obviously, nobody knows how this defective piece of pipe got in there. We are not putting in steel. We're putting in plastic. It will not be welded. It will be fused. And we have never had any problems with our new plastic pipe in any of the installations we've put in to date. And we put in hundreds of miles of this pipe.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I understand that there's absolutely no gas service in this town right now. So I got a couple of questions. First, Mr. Marabito, you probably deliver propane and fuel oil to these homes here, and your trucks probably weigh between 5,000 and 4,000 pounds per truck, and those trucks are up and down these roads every day delivering fuel, and if the gas lines, this will no longer be necessary, right?
Well, he
If
hopes
the
so.
home's all hooked up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as gas is utilized, it displaces the fuel oil and the propane. So
Right.
obviously, there'll be less of a need for the trucking. Yes.
So all them heavy explosive trucks won't be driving by the street. That's down the road. That's good to know, Joe, thank you.
Yeah.
The last meeting we had, we asked a direct question. If the town does approve this pipeline, where would this pipeline be run in the town of Sidney? You couldn't give us an answer. Can you have an answer to
I
that?
still can't give you that answer because we, first of all, don't know where we're going to source the gas from yet. So in order to identify a specific route, I have to have a pipeline or a well that I'm connecting to and taking that gas to the end user. So I know how to get to the end user. It just depends on where the gas is sourced from.
Right, but the question I'm asking is, do you know where the pipeline is going to run? You're asking the town for decision on running the pipeline. We need to know where the pipeline is going to run. It's going to run through 357, through my backyard. We need to know this before we can give you an answer, yes.
No, you don't
Run
need to
the
know that.
pipeline.
There's two simple answers to this question. There is a possibility that there may be some gas source to the northeast of the village of Sidney. And so we would probably, if there was, we would come out of the town going to the northeast, just below Route 88. That is a possibility. What we would need the franchise for initially is, there are some streets adjacent to the village which would be ideal to pipe for local distribution, some homes and some farms. We've identified those, we're happy to provide them, but we were looking for provision of retail service. I'd like to make one other point. There's two reasons you get a franchise. Number one is access to local public rights-of-way. The second is you cannot provide local service in a community without a franchise. Whereas as interested in getting the franchise to provide local service to homeowners as we are for the public right-of-way. And again, as we plot out Sidney, the village of Sidney, we would like to extend into the adjacent town to pick up some additional homes. And we have identified a couple of farms and homes in the town of Sidney that we would be interested in providing gas service.
Yes, sir.
You just stated that you do not know where you're getting the gas from. Is that correct?
Right.
So wouldn't it be safe to assume that you're laying this pipeline, it's an invitation for people to start drilling all along it to supply your pipeline with the gas?
That's a possibility, but
It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
we're not laying any pipe yet. We don't lay pipe as soon as we get a municipal franchise. We have to get the municipal franchise to lay the pipe.
But
Once
you
we
still
get-
don't know where the source is.
Oh, no, that is not correct. We have identified sources of gas in Coventry from conventional formations, non-hydrofrac formations, that we intend to supply gas.
But they
We have
don't-
provided a route from those wells at other town meetings into Amphenol and Attagland. So that we have identified sources. They were non-hydrofrac wells. There are other opportunities to drill in conventional formations in this area that will provide gas with absolutely no hydrofracking. This franchise is premised upon getting gas from conventional wells. It is not premised on any hydrofracking.
Okay, but those wells in Coventry will not supply a continuous supply of gas, is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
Well, that's what you said at the last meeting?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You said that the orphan wells in Coventry would not be able to supply a continuous supply of gas. That's why you'd be able to supply to Mead and Amphenol and not residential
Is
customers.
this a debate?
No, that's what you said.
Okay, what we said at the last meeting, to be absolutely
You weren't
clear,
there, so how do you know?
I was at the Bainbridge meeting, I was at the
You
village
weren't
of
at
Sidney.
you weren't at the-
You know, wait, stop. This is not a bantering session. If you want to ask him these people
Okay.
questions, that's fine. I don't need you badgering them.
Oh, we like direct
What,
answers.
what I said, the direct answer is this. The direct answer is this. What I said is the wells in the town of Coventry probably would not provide gas for a period of longer than 5 years, okay? So if you have a load, end user who's going to use natural gas, and you're taking gas to him from a well, you want to be connected to more than one well. You want to be connected to a series of wells, okay? In Coventry, there are a series of wells and some more permitted wells, and they're at the southern end of a gathering system. They're an orphan system. They're not connected to that gathering system yet. So as they get load, as revenue is generated for those producers, they will connect their northern gathering system to their southern gathering system, and will be connected to many wells as opposed to 3 or 4. And at that point in time, we'll be able to connect residential customers because we'll have a stable supply of gas.
So what is that source you're proposing to connect to?
The source that I'm proposing to connect to are some wells in Coventry.
And then you said after that you'd be connecting to another source. What source is that?
They don't
The
know.
source that's north of that,
And what source is that?
the same company with the same wells having the same gathering system. They would just extend their gathering system from basically the DeRuyter line, which is the line that goes from DeRuyter, New York to Oneonta, down into Coventry. So they've got now 3 or 4 orphan wells are going to be connected to a northern gathering system that is again connected to the NYSEG system and connected to a Dominion system. And at that point in time, you're going to have a stable gas supply. And you can connect residential, commercial, industrial. When we initially start, we're just looking to connect to industrial customers that are dual fuel. So if there's an issue with gas supply, such as a freeze off or water off, we can tell them to switch over to their alternate fuel, which would be propane or fuel oil. Yes, ma'am.
How many years will it be before you? How many years will it be before you expect to serve the local public rather than the larger corporations or companies in the area? Because you said you serve them first. And so what can the individual resident of Sidney Township or village expect as a timeline when they might be able to change over their facilities so that they might be able to use your gas?
Good question. That depends on a couple of variables. And first of all, we've got to be able to develop a distribution system. We've got to be able to get to those anchor customers, the large natural gas end users. And once we get to those end users, what will happen is people who are producing gas and people at pipelines will want to build into our system because there's a load now, there's a demand for natural gas. So if that demand develops quickly, then the supply is going to develop quickly, and we'll be able to get residential and commercial customers on quickly. I think one thing is certain, that if we don't build this system, if we don't connect to anchor customers like we did in Virgin, New York, there won't be any development. And the gas that is produced in this area won't go to any people here. It will go directly onto the interstate, and the people in this area won't benefit in any way. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You mentioned in the beginning that it will be local gas for local customers, for local use, etc. How long is that? Forever? Because you've also, I've seen in the paper, where you're still going on for further development.
Right.
So how does further development go in if you're going to say this is local gas? Is this forever and a day? Is this in writing? I mean, other pipelines come in or other oil companies, and they're gonna wanna come into this.
I can give you a couple examples, I guess. Corning Natural Gas has been around since 1904. We're the smallest publicly traded natural gas utility in the country. Historically, we brought almost all of our gas in from the Gulf of Mexico and southern Appalachia until the advent of conventional Trenton Black River drilling and the advent of Marcellus shale drilling in PA, which we're connected to. So we can never say local gas for local people. We could just say gas for local people. What I'm trying to identify for you is once our facilities are in the ground, they're always in the ground. Another plus for you guys is you're not obligated to buy natural gas from me. You can buy natural gas from a marketer just the same way you buy electricity from a marketer. So if you don't like what I'm charging for my gas, even though it's regulated by the New York State Public Service Commission, you can go to somebody else that you believe has a more competitive price. So you're not locked in to buy the commodity from us. And I guess as far as us packing up and leaving town, it hasn't happened since 1904 in Corning, so I don't see what would happen here if we're fortunate enough to build.
No, I just see you going further on development, that it's going to go up Route 7, it's going to go through Oneonta, through the towns.
Well, we can't go to Oneonta because that's a nice site franchise area. We would like to expand if we're successful in being able to get a franchise here. But that doesn't mean it's going to keep you from getting local gas. I think, we know the numbers from the producer that we're talking to. He's capable of producing 6,000 MCF a day. We don't see that in the village of Sidney and the town of Sidney that you would probably use more than 500 MCF a day for a very long time. So there's more than enough gas around here to supply the potential demand that's here, even if you grow out into the surrounding townships.
I just have a problem with you saying it's local gas for local people and staying in the area when indeed it's not going to.
It's not going to go anywhere else. We're not building to a pipeline. We're not putting a compressor station in.
Oh, but that comes with the wells.
Yes, ma'am.
One question Is it true that Shenango County alone currently has between 150 to 200,000 acres of land currently under lease for gas development that could eventually be tapped as a source for your local gas?
I'm not sure of the specific number. I know it's a large number. I've seen some maps, and there are a lot of acres under lease in Shenango.
I believe that Norris has about 130,000 acres under lease. And then I know Chesapeake has some out in the western part of Shenango County.
Ma'am, this is about laying pipe in the
I'm
town of
just asking
Sidney. This is
the
not about this
source,
other
which
stuff.
they're asking about. They were asking about the source.
We're a local distribution company. We really don't know how many acres are leased to anybody. I mean, we had a question here, how long will it be before we can pipe residences? If it goes according to plan, 3 to 5 years. We got another question about gas being piped out of here. Again, our goal is to just put in plastic pipe, which cannot be used to pipe gas out of here, so we can serve local communities. We're not overbuilding the system so we can get it out of the local area. We're just putting in this plastic pipe, distribution pipe to serve the local community. But if you ask us a question about hydrofracking or leases, I'm sorry, we're just not the right guy.
I just want to know when you're coming to my town, because I've lived in Shenango County since 1981, and I would love to have gas. When are they coming to my county?
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, I would like to know how big the Dominion pipeline is and where it goes to and from, because you mentioned that before, right?
Repeat the question.
Ma'am, the Millennium Pipeline has nothing to do with them.
The
and it's-
Dominion, not the Millennium, the.
These guys are laying plastic pipe in the town of Sidney.
I know, but
This is
he
not,
said at
this is
some
not a
point-
transport line.
He said at some point it would hook up to that.
Dominion goes, where we pick it up in Corning, New York. There's
Okay.
a 24 and a 30-inch line that goes through Corning, New York, and that line tends to go on a diagonal to Albany. And we do connect to it in Corning, and we do connect to it in Virgil.
Okay.
I've got a map I can show you after we're done if you want to see it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
We'd love to hear from you.
I'm a little bit confused here.
Me
It
too.
seems to me that Norse Energy announced just the other day that they're not gonna mess with conventional vertical wells. If that's your supplier, then
Wait,
how do you
wait,
answer them?
ma'am, this is not, this is laying pipe in the town of Sidney.
It's the gas that's coming into Sidney, and that's the supplier. If something's gonna come along the pipelines, is it only coming from conventional wells? And if it is, how is Norse going to do that? Because they only want hydrofrac wells, the big things. They already said that. If you have stock in Norse, you better pay attention to what they're saying.
We will,
I am aware of that.
we intend to connect to conventional wells. We've been talking to a number of producers in this area. There are wells in this area that are non-Norse wells. There are producers who are talking about conventional wells, non-hydrofac wells in these areas. So we're not completely dependent on Norse, A, and B, there are, as was explained earlier, Norse wells that are not currently connected to a pipeline that are looking to find a market and would probably welcome the opportunity to come to Sidney. But we're not completely dependent on Norse, and Norse did announce about a week ago that they had suspended in Shenango County conventional gas drilling.
Yes, sir.
I got one question. Are we gonna use local people to install these things?
Yes. Yes, we use gas contractors. All our contractors are local from this general area. They tend to hire laborers and other people from the local area. Matter of fact, for a work we're doing in Caton, New York, we hired a firm out of this area, boys, Cranes. You can raise your hand if you're here. But the answer to that question is yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I attended the initial meeting in January for the village. We talked about the pipeline, and I understand why you wanted to start with your anchor customers, because fiscally that makes sense. And the residents here in this area, it's a higher density population. But how does that work once you go outside the village? You don't have any large industry, and your population is spread out. We couldn't even get cable when we lived outside the village. So how does it justify the pipeline?
And you didn't even have a meeting like this, you were just hoping you got it, huh?
When we put a pipeline into an anchor customer, they typically pay the majority of the cost for that project. So anybody else that we connect to, we're going to connect, and you say a distance away, you couldn't get cable. I don't know how far you were from the cable trunk line, but we're not going to build a distribution line 3 miles to get to 2 customers. We have to do an economic impact study and look at it. And typically what we'll do is we'll connect to the residential customers and commercial customers that are adjacent to the route that the pipeline has been laid. So the first customers that are going to get connected to the system are the customers that are near that backbone pipeline. When we identify where to put that backbone pipeline. And then over time, the system will grow. I mean, we've got 15,000 customers in Corning. It took us over 100 years to get 15,000 customers. And that has to do with population. And we are spread all over the place. We're in a rural area, so we do have a pipeline that goes up into the sticks. It just takes a while to get there. Yes,
But Russ, let me just mention about the residences, because I know you're concerned, and I'm concerned for our customers. One reason the residences are last to be served is because you have to build out a dependable system.
I understand that.
So as these wells come on, you know, they may freeze up, there may be problems. The larger industries, such as ethanol, they can use 2 fuels. They are dual fuel operators. So if there's a problem with the gas, you can make a phone call and say, hey, you got to switch to your backup fuel, oil, propane, or whatever it may be. Residences don't usually have a backup fuel. So we have to be really sure that we got a nice mature system, because there's no calling you and saying, hey, our wells are froze up, can you use your backup system.
I would comment that Corning Natural Gas serves Lindley and serves Caton, and they don't have half the number of people that the town of Sidney has. So we are very,
Village, not town.
well, we're in the town right now, I believe.
But you're talking about servicing the town, right?
We're talking about servicing the town.
Not the village, you're talking about servicing the village.
We're talking about serving both municipal.
Anyway, my point is that we're very familiar with and we're very comfortable with and have expertise in serving low-density areas.
Mr. Miller, you said earlier that you started this project because you were approached by local businesses. You mentioned Amphenol and meat. Do you actually have contracts with them now?
No, we don't. We don't have a contract with them because we don't have a municipal franchise. So if we have a contract and we don't get a municipal franchise, we can't honor that contract. And that puts us in a
Not a lot of trouble to go to for
Well, no,
contract you don't
no,
really
it's
have.
not, because as a customer, it's my duty to try to provide Amphenol with the most competitive BTU possible, okay? Right now, there's people in this room that are employed by this company, and they're being asked to go compete in a global market with energy that costs $100 a barrel, okay? Their competitors have energy that's about $28 a barrel, okay? So that obviously becomes a big issue for them, okay? So, you know, as we're approached, how can we help with that cost, okay? And obviously natural gas right now is the BTU of choice for a lot of these businesses. So that's how this all started, okay? So if we're able to get the franchises and the supply, the project can come together. If we're not, the project can't come.
Oh, by the way, to answer your question specifically, yes, it does seem like a lot of trouble
Yeah,
right now.
Well, we all know that Amphenol's not in great shape, but you can't write all that
You've
off.
already spoken. This is one at a time. There's a whole bunch of people with their hands up back there.
You're right.
They looked at the cost of natural gas with their current fuel, and they said basically the cost difference between natural gas and fuel oil and propane, their current source of energy, is the equivalent of about 40 jobs, is what Amphenol calculated out to be.
Yes, sir, in the middle, back here with a plaid shirt on.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for seeing that plastic pipe that you circulated around, and I guess that was somewhat in response to the earlier question about the Millennium Pipeline. And I understand that there is a difference between the two lines, one being for high pressure and one being much lower pressure. However, the real nut of the question with the Millennium Pipeline was the connections. And when you responded, I sensed that there was somewhat downplaying of the issue because you mentioned a single weld, whereas in fact the report that came out in July mentioned that there were a sizable number of wells that were either defective or becoming defective. So I'm hopeful that you would explain to us about how these very strong pipes connect together. And I'm sorry if I picked up that you had a sense of downplaying a real problem when you zeroed in on the single weld, whereas the report that I'm reading here in the paper points to many, many defective wells. And we know that for the large pipes, there is a problem with leakage. And how do your wells compare, and how do you connect these pipes together? Because that's the real problem, where they are connected, not to be distracted by the strength of the pipes.
The plastic is butt fused together, which is basically melting the two pieces together. I am unaware of any butt fusions in the United States that have failed inspection and or failed on a leak. Now, I'm not an expert on the Millennium, but I will comment on the newspaper report. There was one well failure identified on Millennium. There were a failure of record keeping on a number of wells, and if the paper is wrong, it's wrong. And they're going to have to go in and re-inspect a large number of wells on Millennium to ensure there are no other defective wells. But there was only one well that failed outside of Owego, New York, They had to shut the line down, and they had to replace that section. The weld had initially failed inspection, X-ray, before it was installed. It never should have gotten in, and there is an open question of how a weld that had been inspected was subsequently placed into service. But again, I do not represent Millennium. I have nothing to do with Millennium. But if you read the report, the actual report out of DOE, which is based upon a report out of the New York Public Service Commission, you will see that the problems are, A, there was one defective weld that never should have gotten in, and two, there is an issue of record keeping of other welds, and until they can prove that the other welds are not defective, as this one was, they're going to have to dig up a number of welds and X-rays.
They're called suspect wells.
They were not have records.
Would you please ask the people here how many are from Sidney or Sidney Center? And I hope the people don't lie when they're asked this.
Not relevant.
Ma'am, we're not allowed to ask them that question?
Yes, it is relevant.
No, it's not. And it's illegal. Absolutely. Violation of the open meeting. Absolutely. Go Albany.
Yes, sir.
I want the direct answer to the question is this franchise to be approved only by the board members? I only see 9 people seated there, or is there going to be a vote for the whole public sitting?
It's going to be us and there's 5 of us. It's going to be us and there's 5 of us.
Well, what about the rest of people who have voiced their opinions?
Most of the people that have voiced their opinions aren't, huh? My lawyer just told me to shut up.
Yes,
Is there, if you get the franchise, will the town of Sidney receive any money for that?
The pipe that is laid in the town of Sidney is subject to property taxes. The assessment is determined by a state assessor and passed down to local assessors. And we are taxed both school taxes and local taxes at the same rate as any other business in the town of Sidney.
So you're paying property tax, but you're
I'm
not
going to
paying-
interject something here too. Any taxes we put on are just a direct tax on the people using the gas here in Sidney.
Well, my question was, is there a fee that is the franchise free?
We haven't,
if you vote it, or do they pay you money?
that's a very premature question.
There's no money offered in the franchise.
Okay. And is there any requirement of insurance?
Yes.
How much?
A lot.
That's a point of debate right now.
Could I ask one other question?
If the franchise agreement is actually a contract between the town and us, the gas company, and one of the points that we typically debate in negotiating this contract is the exact size of the insurance and the bonds that the gas company has to put up.
Is that something that's being negotiated as the town gets larger and the money gets?
Back here.
Does that amount increase over time, or is that fixed for the 50 years at the initial?
It would be fixed in the 50 years. It'd be in the initial contract.
50-year contract.
And I've got one other question. What's the maximum flow when you go through the pipe? If it's safely operated at maximum pressure, and how does that compare to your intended customers?
you want to talk about that or not?
No, what's the maximum flow? How many?
You already explained it, 124 pounds per square.
That's not a flow, that's a pressure.
Right.
Depending upon the length of the pipe, where the supply starts, if we go with 6-inch and there's a debate of whether we should use 6 or 8, it would be able to handle between 5 and 10 million cubic feet a day, which is roughly what we believe we would need to serve the village and towns of Bainbridge, Coventry, some of the town of Sidney and the village of Sidney, residential, commercial, and all the large customers.
Yes, ma'am.
Why should we give you a franchise now if you can't tell us where you're going to source the gas and where the pipe is going to be laid, whose property is going to be affected, and what the right-of-way is on the different types of roads? I know that the right-of-way is a different amount of land depending on a state road or a private or a main street. What's the big hurt? And secondly, I heard that there was possibly some more regulation coming down the pipeline for pipelines of this type? And why shouldn't we wait for extra regulation so that it would be safer? What's the big hurry?
There is no additional regulation coming down the pipe for local distribution. There is regulation coming for gathering systems, and there may be some new regulations for interstate pipelines. But there is nothing that we have seen or been told about relative to any changes in the regulation of local distribution companies by the New York Public Service Commission. And this is the toughest regulation for pipe construction, pipe engineering, and environmental in the United States of America. So that's
I heard that on the radio by a lawyer representing a landowners group, so I'm assuming that he would be.
And I'm sure he was talking about gathering systems, and there are regulations coming relative to regulation of gathering systems. Again, we are not a gathering system. We're not an interstate pipeline. We are a plastic low-pressure distribution system, which is extensively regulated by the New York Commission. What was the other part of your question?
Rights of way.
The rights of way,
Because we are organized as a limited liability corporation, we have no right of eminent domain. We cannot come across your property without your permission and without acquiring an easement. And if you do not want us on your property, we cannot get on your property.
But what is the town allowing you to use their property?
The town, on town roads, and I can't remember the exact.
24.9.
What?
24 feet 9 inches, I believe.
24 feet 9 inches from the center line.
From the center of the road.
From the center of the road is the town right away, and we would be allowed somewhere in that 24 feet 9 inches to put our pipe.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, this does have to do with
Stand up and say about it.
Okay, since the town has to regulate the pipeline because New York State Public does not have enough people, there's been money, and nor does the state DEC is not going to regulate this pipeline. Why should we trust Marabito, Leatherstocking, and don't you move to answer it. You let him answer it. You know, this is bullshit. Why should we trust Marabito, who has already failed in their service to the community of Sidney? Why should we trust them to service us?
Ma'am, first of all, this is not a personal attack on anybody.
It's not
We
a
are
personal
discussing
attack.
main
They have a
pipeline.
bad reputation.
Well, I don't believe that, and it's.
Well, you don't have to believe it. It's my question.
I will go back to the construction and the operation and the engineering and the environmental aspects of our pipeline is governed by the New York Public Service Commission. Every aspect of that line is tightly regulated. When we are putting in this line, there will be inspectors from the New York Public Service Commission there, 100% of the line. They have to approve all of our designs and drawings. They have to approve the material, the pressures that it operates at. We then have to file periodic reports with them on the line. They regulate the speed of service that we have to provide if we get calls. This is not the DEC. This is, and the issue of whether a gathering line is regulated or not regulated by the PSC is a completely irrelevant question as to whether a local utility is regulated by the PSC. We are a local utility. There is an open question as to whether gathering lines operating below 124 pounds are regulated. And I don't have an answer to that question, but what I will tell you, as a utility, we are regulated. Now, Joe, you want to get to the second part?
I guess I have to.
No, I want it in the meeting where it's published. That's ridiculous.
Ma'am, this isn't a personal vengeful.
It's not a personal, this is not a personal question.
Well, ma'am, I think it is, and I don't need it, we don't have to tolerate that type of. Call on somebody else.
Kim?
for starters, why is it that Leatherstocking felt the need to establish themselves as an LLC? Partly, the reason I'm asking this is because I spoke with both the Department of State and also someone at the Public Service Commission, and both responses I got was the only reason anybody establishes themselves as an LLC is if there's a disaster, a lawsuit, that the owners of the company cannot be, they can't be, their assets cannot be touched. Only the assets of Leatherstocking, but Maravido and Corning would not be able to. And in addition to that, if it's so safe, why is it that the town of Sidney felt the need to address, from a liability standpoint, leaking pipelines, explosions, and also there was one other thing in the front.
Let's start with the LLC. The reason we established an LLC, which was my decision, is that if you're a corporation and you dividend up from a corporation to a corporation, you have to pay taxes twice. So we established an LLC for strictly one reason, and that is so we only have to pay income taxes once. Now, relative to a new gas system, this is the safest form of providing heat to a home. We've heard other discussions about this. A brand new distribution system is actually the safest form. Now, there have been issues with older pipe that people have read about, cast iron, 100+ years old in Philadelphia and at Allentown. There was an issue with some pipe, as everyone's aware, in San Bruno. That pipe is 1940s vintage. It was installed in 1955. It involved a number of wells and pups, which are non-standard today, non-code today. But if you're dealing with high-density plastic like this, unless somebody comes in with a backhoe and puts a hole in it, it is going to last forever. It is the very safest system that can provide fuel to residential, commercial, and industrial facilities.
And yet that was, actually, the other thing they addressed was, create an emergency. It was an emergency, this is part of my, they also felt the need to establish a whole emergency management system in coordination with you for gas emergencies. So obviously their safety is obvious. It's a big concern because they address it in at least three different times in your contract, in the proposed contract.
I'll go back to it, both in our franchise contract and our regulation. It only makes sense to have safety procedures in the event of an emergency. Electric utilities have safety procedures in event of emergency. Many people do. It doesn't mean that electric or gas or anything is inherently unsafe, but it would be irresponsible and against code, as a matter of fact, not to have safety procedures in place.
Yes, ma'am.
It seems like the surrounding towns and everywhere else, how does this plastic hold up to flooding? Half the time we get locked out of our homes because both ends of our roads are flooded. And they can't handle flooding. How are they going to handle this?
This pipe will be run at 124 pounds pressure. Because it is higher pressure pipe, you are completely you're immune from flooding. There are low pressure gas systems, cast iron, bare steel, that run at low pressure, and you will get water penetration in. On those systems, you have what are drips that allows the water to flow out at the bottom, and then those drips are pumped. Because this is high pressure, this is virtually immune from any type of flooding or catastrophic event. A matter of fact, this is now being used in Japan because of its strength and flexibility, and they're more worried about earthquakes than they are flooding.
Yes,
Say it's safe if a backhoe.
Ma'am, not your turn.
The pipe that you just passed around, the pipe that you're planning on using.
I can't hear you.
I just wondered, how many years have you been using this plastic pipe, and how long have you had to actually test the strength and the strength of it, and the fact that it, as you say, does better?
This type of plastic pipe, which is high density, higher pressure, has been used for about 30 years in the United States. It is tested between the federal government, typically at this point DOT, and the manufacturers. And once it is certified, it comes to the local PSC, which then has to certify it for pressure. At that point, we would use it once it is certified by both the feds and by the state PSC.
What is the maximum pressure that pipe is rated for, please?
124 pounds.
Wait, you're saying it's high pressure pipe and you're going to run it 124. What's the maximum pressure that pipe is rated for?
124 pounds. You cannot use pressure, you cannot use plastic pipe above 124 pounds according to code in the state of New York.
I'm not asking according to code, I'm asking about the material's designed for a certain pressure, and you're saying it's a high pressure pipe.
It's a high pressure plastic, it is not a high pressure pipe.
Then you're saying 124 is a low pressure pipeline. I'm just asking what is that pipe rated for maximum pressure?
It is rated out and tested at 150% of maximum allowable operating pressure. The maximum allowable operating pressure on that type of plastic is 124 pounds.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, in the back.
You, a few minutes ago, said that it was safe, and a minute before that, you said, oh, just push backhoe.
We're an agricultural area.
There's a lot of backhoes.
A lot of backhoes.
I don't see a lot of backhoes being in the middle of the street.
He said it's always in town.
And it's gonna be in a street, in town.
You said it's going to be from the center of the road, 24 feet from the center of the road.
I said,
That would be
ma'am, that's the right of way. That's the right of way.
All pipe under New York State code has to be marked with tracer wire and marked with markers that are about this high. They can either be metal or plastic. Every marker has to be visible from the previous marker. In New York State, it is illegal to dig without call before you dig. So, and we are part of the call before you dig system. So all lines are clearly marked out according to code, and unless you want to break the law, before you put a bucket in the ground, you're supposed to call before you dig. And that is not only for natural gas, that is for telecommunications, that is for cable, and that is for electric.
But we're talking about accident, not delivery.
Again, you have to call before you dig everywhere in the United States. We come out and we mark the route with flags. The route is already marked. Every marker has to be within sight of the next marker so that we have clear markers for distribution. Again, something that distinguishes us from necessarily gathering systems, which may not necessarily be clearly marked out. But all gas pipe, telecommunications, electric have to be clearly marked out with pipeline markers. And again, we're not the only underground utility.
But that's not the question.
Can I make a statement? Can I make a real quick statement just about what we're talking about? So we've identified for you the material we're going to use, okay? We've identified for you that the New York State Public Service Commission has to approve all of our engineering standards. They have an inspector on site when we put it in the ground. We document and map everything in a GIS system, okay? Then the question was asked, why do you have to have an emergency response system? So if someone digs in with a backhoe, we can shut down the system or the affected area. So it's not like a propane tank where you may not know where the service line is and you clip it off. What's the pressure of a propane tank? I'm not sure. Okay. It's not like a fuel oil company that is not regulated. We've got to do everything under code. We've identified a system for you of how we're putting this in the ground, how it's being inspected, what the operating pressure is, and how we would respond to an emergency, because we have to put an emergency response system in place, and we have to train individuals within the community that work for first responders on how to respond to a leak. So to me, it seems like it's the safest system going. Yes, sir, in the middle.
I just wondered, as a town board, how can they vote on something when it's not as detailed and something in writing and a plan that's submitted, a total plan? Why would you vote on something else? You're getting something from here, you're getting something from there, but it's not all there.
Right.
You want me to address that? You obviously have not been in business. There's no point in anybody spending a whole bunch of money getting some type of system together and then all of a sudden having us not let them do it.
You build a home, you have to submit everything ahead of time, know what you're doing. You're not getting that information.
you have to get a permit before you build a home.
Protect the town people, know where this thing is going, exactly where it's going. Not where you think it might go, where it might come from.
That's impractical.
Once we have a franchise, if we get a franchise from this town, as was explained at the beginning,
Everything in writing, submit everything in writing.
we cannot build anything without submitting it in writing to the town highway superintendent and having permits from the town. So the franchise is just the first process. It then has to go to the New York Public Service Commission. But we cannot build anything like a house in the town without submitting, and we will not get a permit without submitting detailed plans to the town, so that the town has the last say on where and if we build, because they are a permitting authority, which we will have to submit. Well, the superintendent of highway, actually, in this case, I believe.
Excuse me, is that before or after the franchise agreement is signed?
Right.
We cannot submit permits until the franchise agreement is approved by the Public Service Commission.
So it would have to be signed?
We would have to have a signed franchise agreement,
Before you
have it
submit
approved by the Public Service Commission. At that point, before we construct, we have to submit very detailed plans to the town. But before the Public Service Commission will allow us to move forward, there will be detailed plans submitted to them as well.
Yes, ma'am, right here.
Yes, I know this is a meeting about pipelines, but fundamentally we cannot divorce it from the question of drilling.
Well, yes, we can.
Let me finish, please. You yourself said, if we stimulate demand, we will increase supply. Good old economics. We cannot divorce the question of stimulating demand in our town, Sidney, from the notion of stimulating production of natural gas, which people have a very deep concern about. For environmental reasons, for long-term public health reasons, and the regulations on that is insufficient. So we will contribute to stimulating the demand for gas production, and that's a fundamental concern of many of us.
This hearing is on these people being allowed to put pipe in the village, in the town of Sidney, so that they can get natural gas to our residents, which is a thing that most major cities and all major cities have, and we would like to have. It'd be fortunate for us to get this in Sidney, especially so these plants can run and compete with other people that have this resource.
Stand fracking first. Stand fracking first.
Wants to know why it has to be 50-year term.
Almost all of our franchises are perpetual. We have a couple of franchises that are 100 years. The shortest terms we have on franchises is 50 years. We are putting pipe in the ground that we cannot take out of the ground. And we cannot make that investment with a shorter term where we just have to abandon our facilities if the town did not want to renew its franchise.
Somebody who hasn't asked a question. Yes, ma'am.
In order for any resident in the town of Sidney to benefit from this, they would have to convert their boiler to natural gas. How much does that cost, and who would profit from 5,000 residents converting their boiler to gas heat?
Well, I'm going to answer the first part. I'll let these other guys chime in. But actually, as soon as the natural gas facility goes into the municipality's right of way, and we move gas through it, there'll be a tax assessment. So anybody who's a taxpayer in that municipality will receive a tax benefit from it. With regards to what the expense is for switching over, it depends on what type of fuel you have. I think you can hear me fine. It depends on what type of fuel you have and what type of furnace or boiler you're converting from?
Typically, and we just went into the town of Virgil, and the first year we hooked up Hope Lake Lodge, and we hooked up Reed Peak and the town garage, some of the town buildings. In the second year, we hooked up 100 residential customers in the local school, and that's the way we build it out. Now, we are not responsible for and will not participate in the conversion of homes from oil or propane or electric to gas. That's the homeowner's responsibility. We have no idea who converted them over. We do not profit from that. And every home, natural gas service is voluntary. If we go by your house and you don't want us, you don't have to take gas. If you want us, then you're going to be responsible for hiring somebody to either put in a hot water heater or to convert over your propane boiler or furnace or convert over oil. I will say that conversion over from propane is relatively cheap. That conversion over from fuel oil is more expensive. But again, that is not our business, just like drilling is not our business. Our business is to put the pipe there and run one of these little pieces of pipe to your home. And if you choose to convert to natural gas, you're going to have to go over and get a plumber. It is a plumber to convert your home. In almost every instance, it's local plumbers and it's local business.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm going back to safety. I live in the hamlet of Sidney Center, and I'm concerned about the area outside of the village regarding safety. A lot of our first responders and EMS people are all volunteers, including our fire department, and they're very understaffed. And a lot of them are young high school students, just very young people. And I'm concerned if there is, you're talking about training people, well, we are lacking in that department to begin with. So where are you going to get these people if there is the need? Because that's where the backhoes are. They're in the country areas, and if something is hit, we don't want, putting people in harm's way because we're already lacking in messes on us.
But we have a responsibility under code to respond to 75% of all calls for whatever reason within 30 minutes and all calls within an hour. So we have people which will be stationed here, which will be trained, and which will be the first person at the scene. And eventually when the fire department shows up, which is usually after our people, we'll shut off the gas. In addition, for a system like this, we will have what are called automatic shut-off valves. So if we see a movement in pressure or whatever, we will be able to shut off the gas automatically from Corning, New York. In addition, for each one of these with gas services, there will be an excess flow valve at the street where it connects to the main, wherever the main is, somewhere back there. And if the gas line is hit, that excess flow valve automatically shuts off all flows at the street. So if a backhoe went into one of these services, there's an excess flow valve where this connects to the street. It's on 100% of all our new installations and will automatically shut off the flow gas.
The other part of your question is, in our current franchise area, we're in 24 municipalities. There's only one professional fire department, the city of Corning. Everybody else is a volunteer. We train all of those individuals. We're out to spend at least twice a year. And we haven't had any incidents where we've blown anything up. I'm sorry? Okay.
Mr. McCarthy,
No,
when you ask this gentleman to speak loudly,
You're out of
thank you.
order.
You need to run the meeting more efficiently.
What I was saying is that in our current franchise area, we serve 24 municipalities. There's only one professional fire department within that franchise area. Everybody else is a volunteer. We train all those volunteers. We give them training at least twice a year, and we have emergency response meetings all the time. We actually have quite a few guys on staff who are volunteer firemen. So it's not an insurmountable issue. We deal with it all the time. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Japanese. In my country, 50 years, 50 years nuclear plants, and government saying that the nuclear plants are safe. Then this is
I will say, two things.
There is no protection of law in this country or states.
Well, again, I don't believe that's correct. I believe we're very tightly regulated, one of the tightly regulated industries in the country, if not the world, in New York State. We're not a nuclear plant. I have to emphasize that. And as most people are aware, with the nuclear plants, some of them shut in Japan, and increasing numbers have shut in Germany. Both of those countries have decided to move to natural gas-generated electricity as an answer to shutting down their nukes, which I think in itself is a statement about the relative safety of the natural gas system.
Fracking has radioactive waste.
Ma'am, this is not about that. It has nothing to do with that. These questions are getting redundant and out of line. We're going to shut this off now. And, huh? Okay, let Andy.
I'm Andy Nutgat. I'm a resident of the village of Sidney. I'm also in the town of Sidney. I'm also mayor in the village of Sidney. And how many years have we been providing natural gas to the village of Walton, to the city of Oneonta, to the city of Norwich?
Corning natural gas is, again, 106 years old. Binghamton has been having gas for well in excess of 100 years. I don't know Norwich or Oneonta, but I'm guessing they'll be close to 100 or more than 100 years of gas service in those communities. Approximately 80 million homes in this country have natural gas service. It is the dominant fuel for heating homes in this country. The majority of New York State, somewhere around 95% by population weighted, of homes in this state are in counties and in municipalities that have gas franchises. It is extraordinarily rare for some place in the United States of America not to have natural gas service. It is the dominant heating fuel, the dominant fuel commercial, the dominant fuel for industrials in this country, and it has been around for approximately 170 years in this country.
Your company's been around, let me just follow this up, your company's been around for almost 100 years.
Over.
And if we look in the local communities around here, we really haven't seen many problems occur. We right now are at a very big disadvantage in New York State, and we are at a very big disadvantage in Delaware County. We have a major employer here, Amphenol, that employs 1,200 people. Midwest Vaco employs 800 people. We have a lot of small businesses in our industrial park. This will be a real plus to our area if it's done safely, and I really have confidence the BSC will regulate this very closely. When we met with them back in February, the PSC plus the village will have some direction as to where this is going to be laid. We have a 6-year supply of homes in the village of Sidney right now, and I'm thinking the town are probably running the same way. We are on a line of disaster if we don't try to bring some advantages to our local municipality, and I appreciate the town.
I can speak for Corning, and because that's where we're located. Corning, we are bringing in local gas. It is lowering the price of gas to all our customers. We're getting off the interstate pipeline, and we are looking at manufacturing, looking at that competitive advantage from natural gas. Certainly not the only competitive advantage, and we're looking at our major plants all growing. Sullivan Park, Corning is growing. The diesel plant, which is one of the largest facilities in New York State, has doubled its capacity in recent years. World Kitchen, which makes all the Corelware in the world, is doubling their capacity in downtown Corning. We have contracts with all of these suppliers. They consider natural gas a tremendous plus. They consider locally produced gas, which gives them a competitive advantage compared to any other natural gas coming up from the pipelines, a very significant advantage. And we're seeing production and facilities move into our area because of the availability of local gas.
Wait, we're gonna change this format now. These questions are getting redundant. Anybody that wants to speak can speak for 3 minutes, and we're not gonna answer you. You can say anything you want, which it's hard to me to believe that anything hasn't been said yet. You.
Thank you. My name is Jim Thompson. I'm board chairman of the Delaware County IDA. No, I do not live in Sidney, but I have a direct responsibility for the Sidney area because it's part of Delaware County. We are the agency in Delaware County who works very closely with my colleague Glenn Nealon, who's from the Economic Development Department. Our job is to create jobs. We look at Delaware County. Andy Mapiak spoke a little bit about some of the problems that we have in Delaware County and some of the disadvantages that we have. Sidney is the answer to employment and growth in the village or in the Delaware County because you have several key large employers right here. One of the ways to stabilize those employers, to make it easier for them to grow and expand, is to provide them with affordable energy. This is what it's all about. It's going to provide affordable energy to those of you who own a home. It eventually will come around. This is a highly regulated industry. It's an industry that we need to think about and encourage. This is not hydrofracking. I know that's a whole other discussion for another day. We have to consider this.
Hey, you're out of order back there. He's talking.
We have to consider this about jobs more than anything else. Thank you.
You.
Okay, right now the gas is coming from vertical wells, but as the demand increases, is there any guarantee that it will not come from hydrofrac wells?
That is, first of all, in my opinion, the state's going to take this over before very long anyway. So whatever, this stuff is just moot anyhow.
So we're all screwed there.
One question. I know Joe very well, and he's very well involved in this. But I'd like to have him tell us, and I'm sure he can, how much involvement is Amphenol and Meade
Sir, wait a second. Wait.
to work if we get this gas to them? I think that's a very big thing here that we're looking at. I had two people working at the plant, and they're both laid off. I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous. Since I moved up here, we've lost all kinds of people out of these plants. And it's got to be hurting me, you, and everybody here. If we can't have employees, we're dead. And that's the only way it can be.
If you build it, they will come.
You really think this bringing natural gas is going to solve all the problems?
It's going to help.
Oneonta and Walton have natural gas. Are they booming?
They don't have the plants that we do, ma'am.
They used to.
You can't really allow this debate. You got.
Hey, ma'am.
She can talk. Let her talk. Let her talk.
You want to make, you can make your statement now. You have 3 minutes. We're not arguing back and forth. You can make a statement. You want to make a statement?
Thank you. Last night I attended a town board meeting down at Guilford, and a council member said he made a tour of the highway superintendent to inspect the damage to the highway, to the road down the Cooper Schoolhouse Road, and he said that the destruction that the recent rains about 3 weeks ago caused was worse than the flood of '06, that the power of the water was so strong that it actually moved concrete blocks. Now, I saw the roads on the television after these recent rains, and I saw how they totally took away the sides of the roads, and I'm thinking of how can 30 inches be deep enough for these lines? If perhaps 20 inches are washed away by water, then a truck goes off. We know what happened in '06 with those two truckers on 88. They lost their lives. I mean, really serious things happen. We live in weather here. So that's my concern about this 30-inch. When I read that, I thought, how could that be possible? That's nothing. I mean, that's not very deep.
Hi, I'm Alicia Pagano. I was born here in Sidney 82 years ago.
See, you're 10 years older than me.
My family are honored in Delhi as being the father of vet tech in our country. His younger brother, my stepbrother Moby Collins, Lauren Collins is in your I forget what it's called, but he was a sportsman. He's in your big things here in Sydney in sports. And I came back. I lived in many places in the world, and I've traveled many places, and I've seen people, women going for water in the countryside. I've seen people with water just 2 hours a day, and had to get everything, and I've lived in that at various times. I think that many of us here tonight are really concerned not so much about having our homes hooked up to gas, but we really have the concern that eventually the gas that you're getting in the straight down is not going to be sufficient for what you're doing, and we will move to the level that you didn't want to talk about tonight, which is I'm expressing our honest concern as citizens and my responsibility as a citizen to speak out to my government, which is supposed to be to the people, for the people, and by the people. And I appreciate what you've done here tonight of opening this meeting to us. But we really are concerned about the health of our community in the future if we run out of the straight down oil, gas, and have to go to fracking, because all that we can read about it from scientists and other people is that it's the potential of danger to our environment and to our health and to our beautiful countryside. And I've spoken in NATO, I've spoken in national and international conferences, and I must say tonight, I'm more nervous in speaking than any time in my history, and I'm 82 years old. We are concerned citizens. We don't mean to be ugly or against anything. We want Sidney Village and Sidney Township and our community to be growing in positive ways. We want people who don't have enough money to have more money. We're really here because we care. And that's why we're here. And I see my land being moved away because of the flooding. And so you can see we're not here to be mean. We're here because we care. Thank you. We all have a right.
Anyone else?
I'd like to start my statement with a quote from the Department of State Committee on Open Government. The people must be able to remain informed, and they are to retain control over those who are their servants. You, gentlemen, are our servants. Through a preliminary petitioning of the people of both the town and village of Sidney, there is an overwhelming majority that do not want either this pipeline or drilling.
Not true.
An overwhelming majority.
Stop. He can talk.
If we are truly concerned with the future of the prosperity of Sidney, we need to be exploring all forms of safe green energy and not just going with the first person who presents something to us.
My question is, what took so long? I grew up in Binghamton. I moved up here in 1995. The first question I asked is, you don't have natural gas up there? Why not?
I don't mind.
I have a few things that may seem scattered, but first of all, with this pipeline, I have been told that the Public Service Commission rules are that if you folks decide to expand the system, you can expand the size and pressure of the pipeline without even needing a new permit. That's number one. Number two, on the overall picture, where you're getting this from, according to the proposed new rules from the DEC, at least 90% of the new gas wells going in will be horizontal hydrofracking.
All right.
So, you know, this vertical well business, I don't think we're gonna see a lot. It's gonna be rare. Also, okay, we are talking about the total. You're step one, and you open the door a little bit. Step two, more wells, more wells, more wells, until this is an entire industrial zone. Your water is going to be garbage. Your air is going to be not worth breathing. And if any of you want to take a trip, an honest trip to Bradford County, Pennsylvania, I talked to 6 young men just a week or two ago who were in tears. They said, Tonawanda, we've grown up here, my grandfather's farm, it's all a mess. We can't drink our water, the air is awful, it's just a mess. You can laugh if you want.
Ma'am, I was just there yesterday.
Okay.
It's not that.
Well, I think
Fine. Who's next? You.
They had no money on the line.
You.
And no reason to lie. It's their fault.
Hey.
Maybe only select people have to live in the worst of the gas field.
How dare you whip your hand at her?
Okay, yes, Norse Energy. Yes, I got Norse. Excuse me, can I finish?
Ma'am, this is about laying pipe in the town of Sidney. This is not about Armageddon or anything else, and you're out of
You know
order.
what? You are dead wrong.
Frankly, we heard
You are wrong. Pipelines depend on natural gas. Natural gas
you're out of order.
from drilling.
You're out of order.
Is it something you don't get?
Yeah, I don't get that somebody like you can be out of order and shooting their mouth off.
Produce the gas that's going to supply the pipeline. Do you understand that?
Ma'am, this is about laying pipe. This
I
reservoir.
understand.
Well,
What reason
let me
is
tell
there
you
to lay a
again, because
pipeline
obviously you don't understand.
This is about having kids as well as fun.
Why should we have electricity? Let's go back to candles and firewood.
Stop, wait a minute. This is getting out of order. One person at a time can speak, and they can speak about laying pipe in the town of Sidney.
All right,
You.
I'm finished. I'd just like to,
Yeah.
to round it off nicely. None of you people are using this. We have the sun. We have...
Ma'am, you're out of order.
They are...
Talk.
Hey, you're not running this. Why don't you be quiet?
You're disrespectful. Let her finish
Right.
the statement.
Huh?
Cut it off.
Nah.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm not a great public speaker. I'm Jessica Farrell. I've lived in the town of Sidney for 22 years, and I'm a resident of the Sidney Center. And I am deeply concerned about the proposed Leatherstocking pipeline and the issue of hydrofracking. Honestly, we have very serious issues in the hamlet of Sidney Center, and we have been completely ignored by our town. I'm sorry, it's true. Sorry, but we have been ignored for many years. I've been there 22 years. One of the important issues that we have in the hamlet is that we have water quality issues. We lost our town water system in Sidney Center due to corporate abuse that resulted in a Superfund cleanup site. Because of the environmental mess on Richardson Hill, we now have individual wells and septic systems in a limited space. Today, I'm already concerned with my water quality. With the Marcellus gas boom, I fear for further corporate contamination to water in the area. I believe that the proposed pipeline is part of a ploy of the gas industry to get their foot in the door. Once they are here, I think it's likely to become a gathering place for locally fracked gas. If that happens, once again, corporate abuse will destroy one of the basic necessities of life, water. And for this reason, I'm against the invasion of the area for whatever stated reason from any gas pipeline. Most of my neighbors in Sidney Center share these same thoughts. In a democracy, an issue of this magnitude
should be voted on by all the people of our town.
My name is Susan Dorsey, and because I have 3 minutes, I'll tell you that I am Vice President of the Joint Landowners Coalition of New York, which is representing almost 1 million acres of land. And in Sidney, Bainbridge, and Coventry, we have a total of in excess of 15,858 acres. When you look at the whole counties that would possibly utilize, that come to work at the factories, or if you had a CNG station available where people could come and get gas for private vehicles, Chenango, Delaware County and Otsego County have 189,195 acres, and this count is a year old of land in the coalition that are pro-gas, pro-local gas use. He's not shutting her off. And I would like to read you a quote from a case law from the Court of Appeals of New York State. And this is Daniel Udell versus the mayor of the village of Lake Success. This is 5 judges found this on the appeals board. In exercising their zoning powers, the local authorities must act for the benefit of the community as a whole, following a calm and deliberate consideration of the alternatives, not because of the whims of either an articulate minority or even a majority of the community. Rather, the comprehensive plan is the essence of zoning.
Please take
Without
your
it,
hand
there
away from
can
the
be
clock.
no rational allocation of land use. It is the assurance that the public welfare is being served and that zoning does not become nothing more than just a Gallup poll. For your edification. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right there, yep.
Thank you. I'm very pleased that Ms. Dorsey read that to us. And the words that I was struck by was that we must carefully consider alternatives. And as the we are only, she told us that the appellate court, I think it was the appellate court, decided that we should consider alternatives. There are clean alternatives. There is no reason in pushing this dirty energy any further. If you watch the weather reports, you know these are harmful to the global warming. This was the hottest July on record. The drought in Texas shows us the value of clean water, and there is enough evidence to know that if you go down this dirty path, you will destroy our drinking water.
I'm hearing a lot of talk about these gas companies providing jobs for people, but if that's so true, then how come with 70% of New York supposedly having franchises already, this state still has one of the highest unemployment rates in the United States?
I just want to leave a message with truth on board that gas is clean to burn, yes it is, but it's toxic to extract. And you should consider renewable, safe energy before you vote on this proposal. Thank you.
Wait, Jackie's up. You can be next. Jackie's up behind you. You can be next.
Sorry. I would just like to say that in the village where we have 70 properties on the market right now, declining population, a lot of high taxes, we're worried that some of our corporations might leave and we can't do something about it. I applaud the village and the town for looking into any other types of energy that we can get and to try and help reduce our taxes.
There's a lot of talk here about how dirty natural gas extraction is. and the beginning of it. But that's selective outrage. You got coal. And now, I know there's a lot of people here that don't like to hear about coal, but when they mine coal, let's just go with the burning of coal. Eric Snyder was in Pennsylvania because the winds blow this way with coal, and they bring one coal-fired power plant puts 179 pounds of mercury in the air every year. 2 teaspoons of mercury in Cayuga Lake, you can't eat those fish anymore. And that's a major problem. That's a major pollution right there. You get lead, cadmium, arsenic, and a whole bunch of other different poisons from coal. And this is much cleaner extracting than coal will ever be. Oh.
Ma'am, right there, you're up.
I think it would. I just wanted to say that I am a proud American, and all the American flags on the trucks out there do not make them more American than the people who are looking after our country, our state, and our local communities, trying to keep the air, water, and soil clean so our livestock can thrive, our children can thrive, and we can survive.
I want to say that at the moment I heat and air condition my house with natural gas. I'm not against natural gas. What I am against is...
Get it out of your backyard.
Hey, stop.
Yeah, let me finish. What I am against is going forward with pipelines before we know how their source of gas, how it's going to run through, and without looking for alternatives like the village of Sidney has, and done very well doing so. It's much cleaner than it used to be. I don't know why the township is not considering alternative energy at this point.
Such as?
Such as geothermal energy, which keeps everybody's house at 50 degrees. That's a very little move from there to use electricity or solar power for electricity, given that we have very cold winters, such as that, such as wind power, such as a lot of other things that are being developed that will end up costing the residents of the township a lot less money than natural gas.
Huh? Yeah. You. Back there.
I was impressed with your. I was impressed by your attitude. I thought you were supposed to ask people to make pipeline here. The people in this town, Sidney. But your attitude is not really asking people to.
I can't hear you.
This is not democracy. You've made up your mind.
Your attitude, I'm afraid to say your attitude amazed me because I thought you were asking people in Sydney to make pipeline for your business. But your attitude is not that attitude to me, the right attitude to me. I would recommend you to ask the gas company president or yourself that if you would like your family to live in the fracking area, or will you let your children drink the tap water or well water in the fracking area? I might be away from pipeline issue, but this is everybody's concern. The companies say it's safe with this type of project, I think. As I said, I'm Japanese. my country and the electric company had kept saying the nuclear plant was safe until the disaster revealed their lies. I'm afraid of this same type of thing might happen with this.
We all are.
Fracking, we know already is dangerous. Another issue is probably money. I feel farmers are always suffered in my country too. So they even want a little bit of money for lease. My grandparents, even my parents were very poor in their childhood. Comparing to their life, people in this country, America, now, I don't know real poverty. I don't know it. I didn't go through it, but I know it from their story. I feel responsibility to talk about it. We still can get food, clothes. We have house. I'm sorry, people do that, but most of us we can have house. Medicine for children here. My grandparents didn't have house in the beginning. Medicine for children, and they had to let girl die when she was 1 year old. We couldn't feed her well. You don't know this poverty, everybody here. I don't know.
Ma'am, I feel sorry for your family, but this is about laying pipe in the town of Sidney.
I want to talk about economy next.
Well, you've been standing a long time.
Sorry it's long, but I'm slow, but please let me talk. I thought I have to talk about it. Every house has TV, personal computer, washing machine, or microwave. Appreciating what we have now, why don't we try to live more simply, close to the nature? Do you know what one man who lost his wife and children in Japan this time? He said, if my family is happy and healthy, we don't need anything, including nuclear power, nuclear plant. I'm sure he got the benefit through town or village or whatever, through having nuclear plant near there. But he regrets that now. He used to live 200 kilometers away from them. If we would begin fracking, I could see this would happen in this beautiful nature of upstate New York. We are all in big corporations trapped. Maybe I don't have to say, many people know here. And some politicians are for them. They raise tax and gas prices to control us. And if fracking begins, our life and our land will be sacrificed to their personal movie theaters, newer cars, boats, for vacation, or art they pay with millions and billions of dollars. And they won't pay any tax here for damaged road or polluted water. We might have to be aware of, or we have to let ourselves know that we humans and animals and nature are all one. We are one, even the pro-fracking people or anti-fracking people are one. The lady, do you have children? Yeah. Do you think you want your children to drink fracked water? Please ask yourself. That was my question. We have to make discussion from there. Otherwise, we will be loved by generations and generations, by all over the world.
Ma'am, that's enough.
Apparently, this meeting meeting has been turned into a forum on hydraulic fracturing in the area, or in any area for that matter, by those who are opposed to hydraulic fracturing. I don't think this was the intended nature of this meeting.
You're right. No.
I just would like to, since you keep saying that this is about laying pipes, and I just have a feeling that a lot of the concerns of people here are going to be ignored, reiterating the fact that we are concerned about safety and sourcing. I would like to, as you're considering the franchise and whatever the contract is that is being asked or being submitted to be signed by Sidney, that the attorney and whoever else is going to be looking at the terms, that you, over the course of this 50-year period of time, that Sidney has the flexibility to change its direction. This is not strategic. This is old world, I mean not old world, but it's dirty technology. We need to be looking at green technology. We need to have the flexibility in our terms if you're going to go ahead and sign this thing that says if something comes up in the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that Sidney has the ability to move in that direction. I wish I had asked earlier during the question and answer term what the actual terms of the agreement are. What is the scope of the franchise? Is it only for distributing natural gas? Is it for sourcing and distributing? Is it to the exclusion of any other types of energy? These are the types of questions that need to be addressed when you're considering the franchise and the contract, if in fact you're just going to move ahead.
The downpour is not building the pipelines. So they also unloading windmills and solar. A utility company is the one who wants to build it. No solar or wind farm project have been proposed.
I would just like to say, I'll start off by saying I am for natural gas. I think, like a lot of people said, we should be looking forward to clean energy. I agree with that wholeheartedly. In reality, that's 30 years away. The only way that it's affordable now is through government subsidies.
Right.
And we know that government subsidies just got us $14 trillion in debt. So during this period of time, I think it will be better if we use this form of energy, cut back on our importing of oil, which is sending all our money over to Arab countries. And I think that we could do this, do it safely. I have a lot of confidence in the New York State DEC. I dealt with the DEC for 30 years, believe me.
You want to do it?
My vote isn't good. No, seriously.
As you see,
Why not?
Because they are looking into it. I think they're doing a fantastic job.
You want to do that, or you want to just keep talking?
This way is part of the record.
Huh?
This way is part of the record.
I can do it.
Okay.
Huh? I can do it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any point in it? Huh? You. Right here.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and members of the town board, and gentlemen. My name is Doug Zamlis. I'm an attorney from Manlius. And I represent Paul, Albert, Lottie, and several other the interests of the people here tonight. When I was first engaged to get involved in this matter, I asked my clients, well, where's this pipeline going? And they couldn't tell me, and I was rather shocked. So I submitted a Freedom of Information Law request to your Records Access Officer. And I want everyone to know that the town clerk has a certain amount of time to respond to that request for access. But at this point, we've received no documents, and I can't tell my clients where this pipeline is going. So I would request, Mr. Supervisor and members of the town board, that you hold this public hearing open until this disclosure can be made, and the public can review whatever documents you do or do not have about this project. Because I know very well, and so does everyone else here in the audience, that a company, a profit-making entity, does not get to this stage if they do not have pretty good preliminary engineering designs and know where their gas is coming from and know where it's going. And the fact that you can't tell these people, and I think a great deal of the frustration tonight is because people don't know anything about this pipeline other than you're being asked to grant a blank check, essentially, to this company to lay pipe in your municipal boundaries. Now, the same Department of Public Service that inspected the wells is going to be the same Department of Public Service that's going to inspect their butt fusion. And they're overworked and they're underpaid. And I don't mean to impugn or malign the good people of the Department of Public Service, but they're not as concerned about the town of Sidney and the well-being of the environment here as you people are. So it was mentioned that there's a system of checks and balances. Yours is the first check and balance. And if in fact you grant this franchise, you're done, okay? They may become before your town highway superintendent. He has no discretion to approve or disapprove. They'll also go before the Department of Public Service. But they confirmed this is not a Section 121 proceeding for a certificate of environmental compatibility and public need. All they need is a certificate of public inconvenience and necessity. And I want you to understand that they are not regulated under Article 7 of the Public Service Law. So it's really up to this board to evaluate the environmental, the social, and the economic consequences of the action that you're about to take. The concept of alternatives was raised, and it was very appropriate. In fact, one of the things you should be reviewing is alternatives to this. But we can't tell what alternatives are because we don't even really know what the alternative is that's proposed. All that we know is they're asking you to give them a franchise agreement to lay pipes in your town. So you have the first check and balance. Don't give the company a blank check without doing your homework and allowing the public to comment meaningfully. They haven't been able to comment meaningfully because there's nothing available for them to comment on. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
One of the other towns that will also be one of the first ones affected.
Louder.
I'm a resident of Coventry, and I wanted to turn in petitions of people that are in the surrounding areas that will also be affected. There's 405 names. This is a petition of people that are opposed to drilling and all associated activities.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about was that I feel that both the town boards and this company, depending on which way the wind blows, will tell you one thing or another. The first time this whole thing came up, our town supervisor, when I said, why would you sign this agreement? I mean, why give away our property rights with these, letting them go into these right-of-ways that run right through our properties? And he said, if we say no, they have eminent domain. They'll run right over this town like a bulldozer and turn the whole thing into a nuclear waste dump, just like they were going to do 20 years ago.
Will you go home?
Shut up. I've got it on tape. And if you have an amplifier, I'd be happy to play it for you. I've got it on my recorder. And but the thing is, I mean, that was said then. I mean, for starters, I don't think that was true. I don't think they have eminent domain yet. However, if they become public utility, that goes hand in hand, if I'm not mistaken. And and then now they're saying like, oh no, we won't have the right of eminent domain. And whether they, even if they don't, if they become a public utility and we allow them a free ride on our right of ways, the people should have the right to say no. If you want it on your property, you know, if you want a pipeline running through your property, yes, you can say yes, you can get paid for it. We're giving this, you know, by signing such an agreement, you'll be giving them a free ride on our right-of-ways, putting our lives, our health in jeopardy with the safety of these lines, and we don't have any say about it.
Don't hook up to it.
I'm sorry?
Don't hook up to it.
You don't get it. And, well, I mean, with Norse Energy, Norse wanted to put these pipelines through, and according to our supervisor, they were running out of money, and they were only able to get 80% of the landowners to sign. Well, if they can't get it to go through by doing it in private means, by people saying yes, it's okay to go through my property, well then, too bad. You know, you shouldn't be able to take people's property rights away from them. That's just not right.
I've heard statements about government debt and lowering taxes and things like that, but if you really want to lower the taxes for people like us, working class people, tell these big corporations to pay more taxes, because President Obama proposed that already, and obviously they don't want to if they're forming LLCs.
John?
John Woodyshack, village engineer for the village of Sidney. Now that the attorney has made his piece and I guess earned his fee, I guess I have a little problem with that, but I have to tell you that his use of the word blank check really kind of catches my ear and gets me thinking, because that's the same terminology that was used in a letter to the editor attributed to me. This is not about me. This is about all of us. But I think it's interesting. In the letter to the editor, it says that John Woodyshack has given these companies a blank check to utilize the rights of way on any roads they see fit. Well, first of all, again, although it's not me, I signed nothing, okay? The village of Sidney signed franchises, and not that I disagree with it either. But I want to make it clear it's not me. But more importantly, the blank check. Now, the village did not issue a blank check to anybody either, any more than I think the town has any intentions of issuing blank checks. We did not tell the gas company that they could put in any kind of pipeline they want. We did not tell them it can be whatever pressure they want it at. We did not tell them that they can put it anywhere on the street they feel like it, or that they can put it in at any time they feel like it. They were issued a franchise that enabled them to install gas lines for the distribution of gas in the village of Sidney. And as I understand it, I think that's exactly what the town is looking to do. All this other extraneous stuff just kind of creates a little circus, and it appalls me when I see this clapping every time somebody has anything especially derogatory to say, either to the supervisors, or the town board members and the supervisors, or anybody else involved in the project. I think the suggestion of alternatives that was brought up by the attorney here, nobody can disagree with that. There's been alternatives all around you. We have alternatives of solar and wind energy and everything else, but who's ready to step forward and put it in? We have one agency right here, one, not 10, one agency who's ready to step up to the plate and provide an alternative to us. We have fuel oil. We do not have natural gas. They are providing an alternative for us. Nobody else is stepping up to the plate and saying, I've got an affordable energy supply for you, whether it's in solar, wind energy, or hydropower, or whatever it is. Nobody else has stepped up to the plate. Even when the gas company committed years ago to suggest that they put in a natural gas line, we had one other inquiry after that. Nobody else stepped up to the plate even to talk about it. And they're not stepping up today. With all the publicity that's happening here, who else is knocking at the door, coming up with anything else? And we talk about residences, it'll be a great bonus if we can get it to the residents. But if we can get it to the industry, we'll still have accomplished something worthwhile here.
John?
Yeah! And person who said, what's the benefit to me? Correct? Well, it was already mentioned that you can get some tax revenues out of it. I'm not sure it was mentioned specifically, but even your municipal facilities can be supplied with natural gas. And in terms of the village, and I'm sure the town too, we have facilities that we operate on your behalf that cost money and cost a lot of money to heat them with fuel oil and to provide electricity for them. If we can use natural gas or any of those resources, any of that energy, we should do it.
John.
And I mentioned before about 30 years, yeah, maybe solar will come along. Good luck with that. I hope it does. Do it yourself if you want to. But I think we've got one option on the plate, on the table.
Thank you, John, but we're running out of the time.
So he just brought up a point that, there's just, nobody has the power to bring in all these alternative energies. How are we going to do it? Who has the power? The corporations, the Marabicos, the Leatherstocking, the Corning. Why don't you people, instead of giving us more of the same, dirty, ruining our environment, why don't the Marabicos go to bat for solar energy? That's where we need to go with this.
John, I answer that. Do you want to bow it?
No, that's a very good question. Very good question. And we just built, I think, 2 new stores, I think it was, and both of them have solar. And we do offer solar. If people want to install solar, we do that. So we are investigating.
Make it work like this dirty mess that's going to be created here. Make that solar. Go to work. You guys have the power. You've got the money. We don't. We have to depend. We're at your mercy. We are at your mercy. And these people are like every government, every part of the government. The corporations are swaying. Go for it. Stand up.
We've looked at Amphenol. I know they've looked at solar energy as an option, and I'm sure if it makes economic sense, they would be happy to do that.
Economic sense. What about logical sense?
Yeah.
Environmental sense. Long-term sense, not short-term thinking. Long-term. That's what we need. We're all in trouble here. We need some people with power to go to bat.
Ma'am?
There's a local business that has proposed adding 40,000 jobs to our community. And unfortunately, the federal government does not subsidize the solar. It only does the oil and gas. So if you guys could get a bat on us, for us on that, it would really be helpful.
Ma'am, my wife's grandchildren are in the solar business, and they subsidize the solar business.
40%.
70%. Correct.
Is it over?
I'd like to just submit 200 petitions from village and town residents. Thanks. I just submitted 200 petitions from the town and the village against the gas pipes.
Thanks. What's your name? Your name? What? Marsha what? Marsha what? Ma'am, that's the last question back there.
I think everybody has had an opportunity to talk. And I think that shows the democratic country that we live in. God bless us. I do want to ask the board one thing that I've noticed. Amphenol, West Baco, maybe came to you to ask about how you can help us. Why are they not here tonight to address the concerns of the citizens of the town? I think you need to ask that.
Ma'am, they didn't ask me.
Well,
Everybody wants to do this, but they're not here. We're saying we need to save jobs. Yes, I was a former Amphenol employee. I got laid off in March after 33 years of service. Now, maybe they're going to save some jobs, but how many? And they're not here to either company to disclose what this actually would mean for them. And I think that's a little bit disappointing on my part. That everybody there did a great job getting up and talking and speaking of what was going on. But I do think the two main people should have been here at the meeting to address the people and say, this is what we're going to be able to do for you.
This is 2 hours worth. We're going to start the regular meeting now.
Yay.
Huh? Well, who else wants to? Nobody's up their hand. Huh?